All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at a really powerful vision from the book of Zechariah, chapter 14. We're going to focus on just a few verses, 6 through 11, because what's packed in here is this incredible picture of a world completely renewed from the ground up. We're going to walk through it, verse by verse, and see what it's all about. So, let's start with a question that kind of turns everything on its head. What if, at the end of the day, when you expect darkness, you got light instead? I mean, really think about that. It challenges one of the most basic things we know about our world, and it's right at the heart of this prophecy. The first part of this amazing transformation, which we see in verses 6 and 7, deals with something we totally take for granted: time and light. Zechariah describes a day that just doesn't follow any of the rules we're used to. So, verse 6 kicks things off with this really mysterious idea. Whenever you see the phrase "in that day" in these texts, it's like a big flag saying, pay attention, something huge is coming. And this day, well, it isn't bright and sunny, but it's not dim and cloudy either. It's something else entirely, a kind of time that, as the text says, is known only to God. And then, verse 7 drops this bombshell. Right at evening, when the day should be ending and the world should be getting dark, the exact opposite happens. It becomes light. Now, this isn't just, a really long sunset. This suggests a whole new reality where God himself is the permanent source of light. You can really see the difference when you put them side by side. On one hand, you've got our normal day. Sun comes up, sun goes down, then it's night. Simple. But what Zechariah sees is totally different. It's a day with this altered light, no real night to speak of, and then, bam, light at evening time. It's a whole new playbook. Okay, so rewriting the rules of day and night is a pretty big deal, but that's just the start. From there, the prophecy moves from the sky down to the earth itself. And in verse 8, it introduces this idea of living waters. Now, when you hear living waters, don't just think of a regular river. This is a powerful symbol. In the Bible, it represents unending spiritual life, deep healing, and just this constant, overflowing goodness that comes straight from God. And what's cool is how the prophecy connects this big, symbolic idea to actual, real-world geography. These waters, the source of life, they flow out from Jerusalem, which is seen as the spiritual heart of this new world. And they don't just go one way. They split and head in two different directions to cover the land. Verse 8 gets super specific. Half the water flows east, towards what's called the former sea. That's the Dead Sea, a place famous for being, well, dead. The other half flows west to the Hinder Sea, or the Mediterranean. But here's the kicker. It says this happens in summer and in winter. That means this flow never stops. It's not a seasonal thing. It is a permanent, never-ending source of life and blessing. So, we've had the light transformed and the earth transformed. Now the prophecy shifts its focus to the human world, to power and authority. Verse 9 talks about a new global order, a complete shakeup of how the world is run. I mean, this is the headline right here. This single statement changes everything. It's a vision of a future where God's authority isn't just for one group of people or one nation. It's universal. He is the king over the entire planet. And the verse just keeps hammering this point home. It goes on. In that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one. Do you hear that? The repetition of the number one is so intentional. It's all about unity, wiping out all the divisions and conflicts. So what does that really mean? It's a future where all other loyalties, all the other gods, all the other ideologies, all the other things people fight and die for, they're all gone. It's a vision of total, final unity under one single divine king. Okay, from that massive global vision, the prophecy suddenly zooms right in on one city, Jerusalem, and verse 10 describes a literal, physical transformation of the landscape around it. This is such a wild image. The text says that all the hilly country around Jerusalem, from Geba in the north to Rimmon in the south, will be flattened out, turned into a plain. And why? So that Jerusalem itself will be physically lifted up, standing out as the prominent center of this new world. And what I find so interesting in verse 10 is how specific it gets. It's not talking about some new mythical city. It mentions real historical places. Benjamin's Gate, the Tower of Hananeel. This tells us it's about the restoration of the actual historical Jerusalem being made secure right back where it's always been. And that brings us to the very last piece of this vision, in verse 11. And honestly, it might be the most powerful promise of all. It's about a final, permanent security for the people who live in this city.
You have to remember, Jerusalem has this long, painful history of being attacked, conquered, and destroyed. So when verse 11 lays out these three promises, it's huge. It says people will finally live there in peace. The cycle of utter destruction will be over for good. And its people will finally be safe.
And it ends on that powerful, simple assurance, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. So this whole vision, it starts with these massive cosmic changes to light and water, and it brings it all the way down to a very personal, very human promise of a safe place to call home. It really leaves you wondering, what would a world like that actually feel like?